There it is.
All right, live. All right. Yay, we finally did it. We finally
Woohoo!
got it, made it work. I had a
Nah,
robbery. Yeah, I had the robbery that held us back and then getting set up. But without further ado, so feminism. I'll be the first to say I'm pro-feminist. I understand that you have your reservations with feminism, which is great. I'm joined by Classic Ruby. Yay, Alexa,
yay.
give a round of applause.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome. All right, Alexa.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's just jump in this thing. Feminism. I'm going to read definitions from dictionary.com and Britannica. Nothing major, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But so feminism, in definition, that everyone agrees to, is a noun. That is the doctrine advocating social, political, and other rights of women equal to those of men. Equality. I'm all for being equal. One person shouldn't be bigger than the other. And it's an organized movement for the attachment of such rights for women. Britannica says, you know what? I'll show the screen so everyone's comfortable with it's no issues or anything. Feminism, according to Britannica, is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes, although largely originating in the West, that includes Canada. Feminism is manifested worldwide and is represented by various institutions committed to activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. So, as we already know, most of the hangups when it comes to feminism is not feminism, the definitions. It's people like the woman I have on that's the little icon. I'll show the icon of the famous feminist that everyone hates. And it's her and people like her. And that, they're man haters. They believe that men aren't anything, that they're less than scum. All men are dogs. All men cheat. All men do this. All men do that. And that women should be taking over the world. And, it's also different things such as women doing the Me Too movement, and they're, kind of doing the false accusations. And those false accusations destroy lives. So when I was in the Army, and feel free to jump in anytime, of course. Well, I don't have to say it to you because you're you're all about that cutoff life. But just joke.
I see how we're starting this. All right, no, go ahead.
But when I was in the Army and I was a sexual assault investigator, I say a couple of cases I investigated, they could have been, a false accusation or a buyer's remorse. And unfortunately, the buyer's remorse happens where the woman's drunk or under the influence of alcohol, the man's under the influence of alcohol, they have sex, someone gets the wrong idea, and someone says, you know what? I did not mean for what happened to happen. He sexually assaulted me. And that type of stuff does happen. It does happen. But in my opinion, I don't think that feminism is just something that should be thrown away. I don't think you throw the baby away with the bathwater, because different things such as there's I don't know anything about the Canada military. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. My bad on that. But as far as in the States, when it comes to military, there's a lot of jobs that are for men only, even though a woman can do them, such as infantry, field artillery. The military in the States has recently opened up to women to do the same jobs. Now, there are different levels of physical feats that are needed for jobs, such as, men or element is going through a jungle or through any type of setting with rolling terrain, and someone has to carry a weapon system that's pretty heavy. There's both men and women who can't carry the weapon system. So not having someone who is a woman on an element in the military doesn't really make sense, because there's a job for everyone. Not everyone is He-Man. Not everyone can lift 200 pounds or lift ammo or any type of fuses or anything that's needed for a fire mission for the military. Same thing with construction. Everyone is not, a part of carrying loads of lumber or any type of thing needed for a structure in order to build a house, build a building, etc. We actually have machines for that. So we have machines that take away a lot of the strenuous activity. So simply saying that there's a job that a woman can't do is untrue.
Yeah, but okay, let's stop for a second and let's look at, this concept of feminism having to do with equality, right? And so let's look at the definition of equality, right? So the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. So synonyms: fairness, justness, equitability, impartiality, even-handedness, egalitarianism, equal rights, equal opportunities, non-discrimination. Okay, so from what you're saying, right, and I mean, I'm going to delve deeper into deeper topics, but we're on a nice surface one here. It's a good place to start. So from what you're saying then, okay, well, it's unfair because, they have these jobs which they've designated to be, more jobs that require a little bit more, upper body strength. And, therefore we're saying, hey, these are manly jobs and therefore they're only for men, right?
Such as what? Like what job?
Well, isn't that what you're saying regarding the military or in construction where they're saying, hey, well, these should be for men only because they're a little bit, they require more strength and more upper body strength, and therefore it's for men? Isn't that what you're saying?
It was perceived that way, but it's changed because there are other occupations and tasks that someone who has less strength than someone else can do, and they can still have the position. So there's still a possibility of being equal. Like, for example, I have to cut you off completely, but let's say I'm a man, there's another man, and there's a tire that needs to be put on a construction vehicle. Now, even though I can't lift it, I'm a man. If I can't lift it on my own, I can get someone to help me. So it's still possible, even though I'm not as strong as someone else, to still do a strenuous task with assistance or help of someone else.
See, but that's exactly the problem, and you're addressing the problem right there, right? Is so when we're looking at this concept of equality, right? So this fairness and justice and more impartiality, right? Then what we're looking at is, hey, listen, this is the job. We require you to be able to lift that thing on your own. If you can't have the job. It's that simple. Oh, but I could help. I could do it if only I had help of one or two other people. Well, that's not the job. That's not part of the requirements. And so changing the requirements and changing things so that way it allows women to have the same job is not being fair. It's not being equal. We're going to change things so that way it allows women to be able to do this thing. How is that really being equitable? Right? There is this job exists. If you are a woman and you can physically do the job, great. Then you know what? You should be able to get that job. But if you are a woman and you can't physically do the job, it isn't fair to say, well, we should then therefore change the job just so women can also be have that title or have that job. How is that right? How is that equitable? Right? In the same way that, women get more time in maternity leave off, right? And we're saying, oh, well, men should also be able to get some paternal rights off and whatever. But ultimately, what did it come down to? Why did women have that maternity leave? Because women are the ones who are going to be 8-9 months pregnant, ankles swollen. Then they're going to have to push this baby out of them for maybe days. And then they're the ones who are breastfeeding and they got to do all of that. Okay. So we definitely have to give women time to be able to do that. Men don't have to have that time. It's nice for them to have that time. It should be great that they get that bonding time. But in and of itself, who needs that time? The job of parenting for men and women is different. The job of becoming a new parent is very different for men and women. To say that men should automatically have the exact same allowances as women, the exact same allowances maybe or access to different types of medical care, so on and so forth, when the woman's pregnant at 9 months pregnant, that would be ridiculous. Why? Because the woman is the one who's carrying the child. The woman is the one who, in this case, needs a special kind of care, needs a special kind of time off. right? So we're trying to make, fathers more involved in parenting. I think that's great. But at the same time, to turn around and say, well, men and women are equal, and that therefore men should also be able to get off of work when their wife's 9 months pregnant because the baby's going to be on its way soon and her ankles are swollen and she's this. And well, is that a logical argument? Well, no, it's not. But that's the argument that we're making for women a lot. We're saying that, hey, we should lower the weight that firefighters should have to pick up to allow women to be able to be firefighters. When at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but as a person who's in a burning building, I don't care how equitable the job is. I want to know you can pick me, my husband, my kids up and carry me down a ladder. That's what I want to know. Right? Because that's the job. That's what you need to be able to do. This isn't about fairness and, well, women want to be firefighters too. That's great. If you can get there to that physical level where you can lift a grown man who's passed out or a grown woman who's passed out or whatever and carry them down a ladder, then you should be able to be a firefighter. But what we shouldn't do is change the requirements of what you need to be able to physically do just so women can be firefighters too. That's not equitable at that point.
I disagree. So with the maternity leave, that was a good point. However, men can also have the maternity leave too. The leave is based off of a physical change or some type of injury or tear sustained from an activity. So like workman's comp is the same way as maternity leave, where there are jobs where men can actually take maternity leave and bond with the child. If there's no maternity leave for a man available at an occupation, he doesn't have to take it. So that still doesn't really justify a woman not getting the same pay or opportunity as a man just because she goes through a physical change to her body during childbirth and he does not. He can also take paid time off. If he gets hurt, he can get workman's comp, or he can just take off work, take
so can she.
So can she. So it doesn't really justify their pay or opportunity being different just because she's chosen to give birth and he's accepted a job where maternity leave is not a part of his.
But you know what, though? It's not. And see, that's the thing. What people don't actually look at are not just the statistics between women who've given birth or have children and women and men. What they're not looking at are the differences between the women who take 5 weeks of maternity leave and women who take 9 months or a year every time. And see, that's the difference. If you're career oriented and you're career driven, then you being pregnant for 9 months and you would only take a short amount of leave off and you'd be right back at your job pushing, gnawing at the bone, trying to build your way up the ladder. In and of itself, if you aren't that go-getter, if you aren't fighting and pushing and demanding, because that's really what you need to do in a dog-eat-dog world, then yes, you're not going to get the same opportunities. You're not going to get the same promotions. You're not going to be able to get the same type of raises, because at the end of the day, you think someone should hand them to you. No one's handing them to your peer who just got that raise. Your peer has decided to go and fight their case. Your peer has decided to demand that because they think that they're worth that. And they've actually done those studies that have proven that the difference in that pay scale has a lot less to do with gender and more to do with negotiation skills, which is something that both men and women can have.
So you mentioned the career metrics being that if you're a go-getter, you accomplish tasks, you should be rewarded. Is that true?
Absolutely.
So if a woman and a man both obtain the same career metrics, such as they're supposed to sell a certain number of products, they're supposed to provide a certain number of services per hour, they're supposed to be lifting a certain amount of items. If both men and women can both hit the same metrics that determines a raise or a bonus, how is that wrong? They both are meeting the same criteria. They should both be given the same opportunities for the promotion and the same opportunity for pay.
And that's what you see. You actually see that. So in higher paid jobs, actually, in these higher powered jobs, and this is what they started to look at now is when you're looking at someone who's a little bit higher up, not the average, but the people who are a little bit higher up, what you see is that that pay disparity between men and women disappears. Why? Because those women are actually meeting those targets, and they are fighting for the next spot, and they've developed all those negotiation skills because they are driven and they're career oriented. And so because they're career oriented, they are raising at those same levels. They're actually fighting. They know what their value is, and so they're saying, "Nah, I need this. You need to pay me this," and they're getting that. And you're actually seeing that pay disparity disappears. So what's the difference? And that's what I said. They came up with and they figured it out. It's those negotiation skills, because women think that, you know what, everybody's fair in business, right? So if I've just been working really hard, I'm going to go in there and you'll give me a $5 raise, right? No, that's not the way it works. You often have to ask for it. You have to demand it. You have to prove your worth. And if you aren't going to be the type of person who's going to demand it, they're not going to give it to you. They're actually, and you know what? Around the time, the show Grey's Anatomy. This was after Derek dies on Grey's Anatomy that they showed this. And this was after the statistics started coming out and they started realizing this was the problem. Meredith Grey is given head of general surgery. And at that point, you know, she's just happy she got the job. Like, hey, it fell into her lap. She feels happy. She's ahead. And then, you know, she lives with two women who are also heads of their department. And they look at her pay and they like scoff at it like, oh my God, you're only getting paid that. I make like double, triple that. That's crazy. And, you know, at some point, the old head of the hospital goes up to the new one, Miranda, and says, hey, listen, you know, Meredith deserves more than that. And what does Miranda say? She says, it is not my job to give her money that she's not asking for. It's not my job. I'm not going to hand her what all the other heads are getting when she doesn't think she's worth it. That's not my job. My job as head of the hospital is to make sure I fill that spot and to do it as cheaply as possible. It's her job as a new head to know what her value is and to me and to demand that. And that's what that whole episode was about. It was addressing this issue and this discrepancy that you see in women in business, where they honestly think everyone's just going to be fair and give them what they deserve. And they don't realize that, nah, you got to have those negotiation skills. You've got to have that confidence to go and demand what you're worth.
So negotiation skills. So let's say a woman and a man both apply for the same job, and the man applied for it in January, a woman applied for it in February. Same job, same company. The woman is offered less because of her gender and gender only. Because see, when you first apply for a job, there's no measure of effectiveness as far as what you've done because you haven't had the job yet. So for her to have to negotiate and fight for the same thing that a man is given as standard, that's unfair. Now, if you get on the job and, you know, you're talking about a promotion or keeping your job based off of, you know, metrics that you may have had to accomplish yet, but the negotiation skills is, you know, we're talking about standard pay. So, you know, you can negotiate, you know, more pay, but we're talking about standard pay, like what the man is offered up front and what the woman's offered up front.
Which I've regularly negotiated my whole life, because I know after my first couple jobs where I worked minimum wage, which at that time was $6.85 an hour, I never did that again because I decided. I wrote my resumes to reflect a certain thing. I made sure to not show too much enthusiasm at a job opportunity, even if it was my only one. I made sure to drop hints that I had other people that I had interviewed with. And at the end of the day, I made sure to set a base amount that I was actually happy with, regardless of what the job posting said. And more often than not, I got that or close to that. In some cases, they actually beat that. That had to do with me understanding my own value, though, and walking in there with my shoulders back and my head held high, like I ain't accepting anything under this. And that's the difference. Even with a brand new job where all you've got is a piece of paper and the personality you walked in with, you can absolutely demand what you're worth. You can absolutely see a company, because companies hustle men too. Don't think that it doesn't happen to men. It happens to men too, because they look in your eyes. They see the fact that you need this job more than they need you. because you got way more applicants than they have job offers, and they'll take advantage of that. That's for both men and women. It's up to you to not find that acceptable. It's up to you to think that, nah, man, I know I'm worth more than that, and I'm not going to settle for less than that. So you know what? I'm sorry, I really couldn't actually start for less than this.
So let's say minimum wage is $5 an hour back then. Okay. And you're like, I don't want $5 an hour. And you negotiated up to $10 an hour. And then what if you found out that all the negotiation, having your head held high, shoulders back, having your chest out, doing all that got you to $10 an hour, which is $5 more than minimum wage. But the men who were your counterparts were just offered $10 an hour without having to do all the negotiation and having their head held high and all that. Would you think that's fair?
Yes.
Why would you think that that's fair, that you're having to fight for what they're given, like without even having to try or even show that they're...
Because an equitable society is not going to only take into account where I need to be fair to men, and not realize at the same time that, hey, there are times that I'm going to just be handed things that they're not, which is absolutely true. There are lots of things as a woman and as a beautiful woman that I'm handed that they never will. So unless I want those privileges to disappear as well, I'm going to recognize the fact that, yeah, there's going to be some times that because I'm a woman, because I'm young, because I'm beautiful, because I'm Black, that people are going to try to discount me. That is going to happen. That's going to happen to men as well. I mean, and we're going to talk about some of those topics later where, hey, listen, things are not fair or equitable at all. And things 100% favor women. But you know what? If I don't want that privilege to go away because it's a fact and it's a reality in society, and to be honest with you, it's something that I can use to my favor to get ahead in other ways, then you know what? I'm going to recognize the fact that, hey, if I can get myself there, if I have to work twice as hard to get to that same place, the point is now I'm not working twice as hard to get half as far. I can work twice as hard to get to the same place. Yes, I'm actually okay with that because I know that I'm favored in other ways in society.
So I'm glad you said that, because even though this is a feminist conversation, the idea of equality is something that that pretty much is the subject of the conversation. And so you're saying that you're okay with women having an inequality society and that they're given less than men simply because of their gender. Is that true?
No, actually what I'm saying is that we don't live in an equal society, and there's many places where men are given less than women, and women have it far easier. And so I'm recognizing the fact that there's that disparity in society. So yes, unless everyone's privilege disappears, everything becomes 100% equal, I'm recognizing the fact that there are going to be areas that I'm going to have to work harder, just like there are going to be areas that men have to work harder. And to be honest with you, I'm also going to recognize the fact that at this point, some of the places that I have to work harder end up being a lot more fair than places that men do.
So name some, like this, either one or many examples of where men are given a disadvantage to women. Now, I know you named the maternity leave, which
sexual assault. Sexual assault. It's very easy. As you stated, you told a whole example at the beginning of the stream about how if a guy and a girl are drinking in a bar together, now she's intoxicated, therefore she can't consent. So if they go home together and they have sex, at this point now he's basically date raped her. And what we don't look at all is the fact that the guy is equally, maybe even more impaired, and she brought him home and had sex with him. So why is it that in that case, she's perfectly innocent and he's going to jail?
It's the first person who makes it to complain.
But that's a problem, because in and of itself, what we should be looking at is the facts. It's as simple as that. either both people who were intoxicated who chose to have sex with someone else who's intoxicated, either both of them are at fault or both of them are innocent. And I'm not talking about the people who, you know, one is intoxicated, the other one literally forces himself on her. I'm talking about the people, and hey, she was just wasted as hell, and now she wakes up in the morning naked. She can't really remember quite what happened, but at the time she was totally down for it because she wanted to. Now she just can't remember, so she's like, I feel bad about this because I had sex with these two guys. And you feel bad about things in the morning, about decisions that you made, absolutely. But at the end of the day, if you consented at the time and you were equally as intoxicated as the people you consented to sleep with, then he is either just as guilty as you, or he's just as innocent as you. But that's not the way we look at women. For all that women are fighting for equality and justice, and I should be treated and looked at just the way men are, and I'm just as able and just as intelligent and just as this and that, somehow or another we infantilize women at the same time, and we say, yeah, but no, but she was drunk and so it wasn't her fault. He was drunk, so what? He's a rapist. Wait, what?
Well, yeah, because you can't consent to a sexual activity under the influence of alcohol legally. So the first person that complains pretty much wins. Now, men do complain about being sexually assaulted by women. Those statistics are there, even though men may complain less than women.
Okay,
So,
first of all, how many of those women go to jail? A. B, though, and here's the most important fact, again, when you say the first one to complain, think about that from a logical standpoint for a second. Either a crime happened or it didn't. If you look at the crime in and of itself, if I beat the shit out of my boyfriend and he does absolutely nothing, and then I call the police, he gets arrested even though he's the one who's all beat up in black and blue. My fists are all scraped, but because I called the police first, he should actually go to jail for assault. This is what we're talking about here. I mean, because that's not the way it works. It's either a crime or it's not. And if it's a crime, then you look at the facts of the crime. And at the end of the day, if it is a crime for someone who is intoxicated to have sex with someone else because they're too intoxicated to consent, then it should not matter the gender of the person that is too intoxicated to consent. At the end of the day, anybody who sleeps with anyone intoxicated, even if they're intoxicated, is a criminal now. That includes the woman.
we do have to take, I will give you that we have to take into consideration that men are viewed as stronger than women because of our upper bodies. However, that should be taken into account because that's something you can't make equal. So, you know, a man and a woman are both intoxicated, they both sleep with each other, one complains over the other, it's more likely than not that the man overpowered the woman, unless the woman is larger than the man. So there is an inequality for that, but I think it's rightly so because traditionally men have sexually assaulted women more than vice versa. And, you know, and speaking of,
You know what? Here's the problem with that is we don't actually have valid statistics on sexual assaults against men, primarily because A, they're not reported, and B, because half the times they're not looked at as assaults for exactly what you just said. That stereotype or that bias that because men are physically powerful and so therefore all men should be more physically powerful than women, and so therefore there was absolutely no way that this woman could have overpowered him. So therefore, if she had sex with him, it was his choice.
if it's not reported, it didn't happen. That's just the unfortunate. That's why I said if two people are intoxicated, they have sex, and one of them goes to complain. For the sake of example, we say the woman goes to complain. If the man did not complain, then his complaint is now invalidated. Even if he complains afterwards, after she makes her complaint, it makes him look guilty because it's like, well, what did you wait for? So the
But
first
CK, and this is what I asked you though. How many of those complaints would be taken seriously for exactly what I just addressed, for exactly what you just addressed? Well, you're stronger than her, so there's no way she could have overpowered you in any way, and so therefore you must have wanted it. How many men's complaints would be taken seriously? How many men's complaints are taken seriously? Or how often is it more so brushed off? Even when they're younger men, how often is it more often brushed off, or even they get cheered? Like, oh yeah, you got some last night? Oh, you didn't really want it? That's crazy, brother. She's hot. I mean, and that's the problem, right? So there's this disparity here. Everyone is fighting for women to be believed, but no one is fighting for men to be believed. No one is fighting for anyone to recognize that men can totally be sexually assaulted, and their physical upper body strength has nothing to do with the fact that now they're caught in a bad situation, and mental and emotional factors come into play as well.
Okay. I disagree in women being paid less than a man for the same job. I just I can see where you're coming from. I can agree with you as far as the sexual assault rate of men compared to women. We can agree on that. But as far as opportunities and pay, I just do not see a difference in opportunity. It shouldn't be a big me, little you when it comes to the difference in sexes. So I got it.
It's not though. Again, they've done when you look at a giant comparison of all working men and all working women, you see a disparity. But when you actually measure it up, job to job, head to head, teacher to teacher, professor to professor, and whatever, you don't see that same pay gap disparity. And in fact, and this is something that keeps being brought up to feminists, and they don't really like to answer the question. But what about the fact that in some of these jobs, actually, women get paid far more than men? Are you okay with that?
No, I'm not okay with that. It's going to be a case by case basis, like how you mentioned in the beginning, negotiation and different things. And also you have tenure. So if someone was hired in 1993 for, like I say, a position where they're like a debt collector, and someone gets hired for the same job in like 2003, the person in 1993 is going to have more pay because they've been there longer. So I can agree to that, but just simply paying someone based off of their gender
but nobody's doing that anymore. And that's where my issue with third and fourth wave feminism is coming in. Is yes, there was a time for feminism. There was a time where we really did have some serious issues, as far as women not being looked at as equal humans, in the population. So yeah, there was a time where that was actually the case, where a woman and a man would be hired on the same day, doing the exact same job, and the man's paid $5 extra. Per hour. Yes, that absolutely used to happen. But the fact of the matter is, and this is why no one likes to do the breakdown of the actual numbers, and really put it head to head when you're really measuring head to head, just like you said, taking into account factors like tenure, taking into account factors like the seniority, taking into account factors like actual job responsibilities, and stuff like that, those differences start to dissipate. And what it comes down to is, which, we can argue about this all day, for example, far more women are teachers. Teachers are notoriously underpaid. Women happen to be in jobs that are, in some cases, highly underpaid. They're highly underpaid professions. And so when you measure men versus women, as far as income they're bringing in at, various ages and stages in their lives, yeah, you're going to see a major discrepancy. But does that discrepancy exist within each individual field when you are measuring head to head and you get pretty even comparisons as far as things like tenure and whatever? No.
So are you familiar with James Bond?
Like the 007 James Bond?
Yeah.
Okay, vaguely.
Okay.
Like I think I saw GoldenEye.
So the the character of James Bond has been primarily portrayed by a white male, and there's been a backlash. I'm going to show you a picture. RBR showed it on his channel, and he was for it. I'm for it, but a lot of people are against it. So James Bond right now is being played by a woman. And there's backlash from that because I don't know if you saw the movie Captain Marvel. There was have you seen the movie Captain Marvel?
No, I can't lie.
Okay, so this is James. So James Bond has been primarily a white male, and now James Bond, or now 007 is going to be played by a Black woman. There's backlash because the role has been traditionally a man's role, and now they're allowing a woman, a Black woman at that, to have the role. I think that is great because it provides equality in a movie role. Other people are against it. I don't even know, what reasons they have against it. Do you see anything wrong with that?
See, my thing is this, there are tons of possible and previously existing female roles that could be in movies. Why not hype up and glorify one of those rather than taking a male's role, James Bond, and then turning it into a female's role? Like when you think about James Bond, you think about all the attributes of this man. You know what I mean? He's basically like a legend. He's a story. He's a legend in and of itself. So now to change him into a woman changes the entire essence of that storyline of this legend that has existed all this time. Why do we have to do that when there are female characters that could be portrayed by Black women?
Well, so it's not making James Bond into Jamie Bond. It's just giving her the agent number of 007, because 007 is supposed to be like, the titular character and like, I guess, the main person of this agency. But in my opinion, it's, even though it's a legacy character, just like, what's highlighted on the screen, casting Black female actors or actress as legacy characters is a great step towards rectifying the historical racism and sexism that has led to a disproportionate number of those characters being white men. But it's only a step. Why is something like this, where women are given the same equal opportunity as men, bad? I got it with the sexual assault. Even I have my biases with that. I should work on that. But what is wrong with, kind of somewhat not really forcing, but manufacturing situations where women can play characters traditionally portrayed by men and vice versa, to present equality and to no longer have barriers where women are denied opportunities?
Okay, so should the next Lara Croft be a Chinese man? Should the next, Little Mermaid be a little Black boy? Like, at the end of the day, here's the thing. And this is where my issue comes in. There's a million different characters in history that existed that were women's roles that no one ever bothered to shine a light on. They were just in passing. No one bothered to focus on this character or whatever because she was just a supporting role to this man. Why not actually take that role that already exists in history and shine a light on it? It's already a female's role. It's just no one thought the female roles were important enough to shine a light on. Why not go back into the storyline, into the history, and shine a light on that female character rather than taking the male character and transforming it into a female one so that way people can care? That's not, that to me, that in and of itself is not equality. That's not saying that, hold on, that's not saying that men and women are equal and men and women roles are equal, because what it's doing is it's dismissing all the possible roles that women could have, and saying, well, in order to be an important role, they have to be this male role. That's my issue.
Well, it's about equality, and it's a bigger and better light doing that with, allowing someone to play not necessarily a male role, but the title character. It's easy. Why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to?
Because that's the point. That's the point. The point is for equality to actually be a thing. The point is not for women to take over men's roles and to take over men's things, but for there to be a light shone on women's roles and women's things, and for those to become equally as important, equally as shining, to pour equal amounts of money into this woman's role, into this woman's story, into this woman's thing. When you're going to sit there and take over men's things and then put a woman in there. No, that's not equality at all. That's just trying to take over something that is already male because you think that the way to get the attention to women is to put her in a male role. No, that's ridiculous. Well, there's, like I said, at the end of the day, we can go back and we could pour $25 million or $50 million or however much goes into this movie into a movie where the title character is actually a woman. We can shine light on those roles that have been largely ignored in history. They always existed, just ignored. We can shine a light on those and we can say, you know what, those women's roles were just as important, just as interesting, just as fascinating. They can create just as much of a legacy, and let's do it. They could do that. They just choose not to.
So you're saying that Lashana Lynch playing 007 is bad just because the role has been historically a man?
I'm saying that at the end of the day, her playing that role does nothing for equality for women. Just like at the end of the day, letting girls into Boy Scouts does nothing for equality for women. Does nothing for that. Because all it does is, again, even though there's all these groups for little girls, they all exist. All it does is say, well, the group for little boys is better. Keep pouring money into that group for little boys and then let our girls in. Well, you know what you could do? I know, strange thought, but there are these groups for girls. They're legacies. They've existed for decades, generations as well. Why not actually take the time, energy, effort, and research, put it into these groups and have those morph into the 21st century so that way they are addressing more than just, I don't know, sewing and you know, whatever, and teach the girls how to build fires and how to do this and how to do that. Get something coveted that only the best of all guides can actually achieve and whatever. Make the girl guides, revamp the girl guides into something that is desirable and worthwhile that the girls of the 21st century want. Don't just say, well, that's all old fashioned and for girly girls. I want something for boys, and then fight for the girls to go into the Boy Scouts. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, the thing is Girl Scouts don't do certain things that Boy Scouts do. So
exactly. That's what I just said. Revamp.
So for the girls to want to have the opportunities to build a fire, to go hunt, to go fish, they have to join the Boy Scouts.
No, they don't. No, they don't. All they have to do is revamp the Girl Guides or the Girl Scouts curriculum to include things that the 21st century girl would now want to be a part of, because things have changed in 50, 60, 70 years, and girls no longer want to sit there and just learn how to sew a new skirt. They want to be able to build fires and climb trees and catch fish and do whatever.
Not all girls do.
So but see, that's the thing. That's absolutely not true. And see, that's the problem. Equality. This is the thing that people are missing with the concept of equality, is that you're saying, oh, well, not all girls want to do that. You know why girls don't do that? Because they're told that they don't want to do that. And so they're told that, well, you know, if you want to catch fish and you want to do this and you want to do that, then you want to be one of the rowdy boys. No, they don't, but they want to do those things anyway because they're kind of cool. So, hey, you know what? Revamp the Girl Guides curriculum, revamp the Girl Scouts curriculum, so that way it includes these things, and it includes all more than just sewing and blah, 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 but it's also geared towards the girl that is approaching puberty, because female puberty is obviously different and things they're going to be concerned about and need to know are going to be different, but include other things. Keep in mind the 21st century girl is very different than the 1950s girl, and create a curriculum around that. But they don't want to revamp the Girl Guides. They don't want equality in the groups. What they want to do is say, well, the Boy Scouts is better. That's not equal. The Boy Scouts is better, and so our girls should be allowed to be over there.
So girls and boys, they're not equal, and they'll never be equal, because there has to be a Boy Scouts, there has to be a Girl Scout. There's no way, you're saying there's no way for boys and Girl Scouts to, there's no way for a boy to join Girl Scouts and a girl to join Boy Scouts. You're saying that they should be separated. Boys should be with boys, girls should be with girls, no mixing, right?
Boys and girls, it's not about them being equal. They're not the same. It just comes down to, I mean, even I remember once going trick-or-treating I was about 7 or 8 years old, and we went with my dad's kid, friend's kid, and he was a little boy, and so he had to go pee at some point while we were walking. I'm like, I gotta go pee too. It's like, now you gotta wait till you get home. I'm like, why? How come he gets to go? Why? Because he can literally pull down a fly and pee in a corner. I can't do that. The production alone of me getting to the place where I might be able to pee in public is going to be a lot, and then I'm going to pee all over myself because that's not easy to do. You got to figure out how to dig a hole, pee downwind, all this kind of stuff. It's a lot more of a process for a girl to have to pee outside than it is for a boy. We aren't the same. Boys and girls are not the same. Are there things that they could do that are the same? Absolutely. Learning how to build a fire? Absolutely. But you know what? Even the way girls and boys solve problems is different. The way that they attack situations is different. And what we should be doing, rather than saying Boy Scouts is better, is we should, again, be celebrating those differences and celebrating all of the ways that little girls' minds are different and stronger in these areas. And we should be creating complex tasks for them to solve on top of all of these fun things like building the fire and whatnot. On top of that, we should really be utilizing the woman's full potential, the little girl's full potential. But we don't want to do that. We want them to go into Boy Scouts, which in and of itself, remember, is geared towards the little boy's mind. It's not geared towards the little girl's mind. And yes, little girls and little boys do think differently. Again, they have different strengths in different places. We know, for example, fine motor skills in girls develops far earlier than in boys. We know the problem-solving skills, the way that girls solve problems is different, and often, again, matures earlier than for little boys. And so, you know what? The kind of challenges that we could give to little girls would be amazing. If we actually geared and created a curriculum to challenge them. But we don't want to do that. Again, what we want to do is say, well, the Boy Scouts one is cooler, so our girls should be allowed in that, instead of recognizing that, hey, the Girl Scouts could be cool as hell. We could make this like the envy of the talk of the town. Like, everyone wants to be able to get up in here. But we don't want to do that. And that's where the problem comes down to for me, is wanting to just take over all the boy stuff is not equality, and is not saying, hey, listen, girls are just as good as boys, and, girls are just as equal in society as boys. Because if girls are as equal in society as boys, then what we're going to want is we're going to want things that cater to girls and their needs and wants just as much as there are a bunch of stuff that caters to little boys and their needs and wants. We should want something that's special for our girls, but we don't want anything that's special for our girls because we don't see that as being equal, despite the fact that that's the way things were with the Boy Scouts. We're saying it's special. They get to build fires. I want to build a fire. Okay, well, hey, you know what? We could have you build fires, but on top of that, we could actually have you go through a bunch of problem-solving skills to figure out how to build that fire under difficult conditions. Why? Because little girls' minds are actually geared towards solving those problems earlier than little boys. That's just what it comes down to.
So in other words, boys and girls, men and women are physically different, both in body and in mind. So are you saying that, and I have to move the goalpost. I have to move the goalpost because I'm curious on the answer. So what if a man wakes up one day and is like, you know what? I am a woman. Or a woman wakes up one day and says, you know what? I'm a man. Do they not deserve equal rights as what they're transitioning into being, like transgender?
I don't have LGBT conversations with the Black community. I'm sorry, but I don't.
Well, it's just you and I here, and like a couple people in the chat. I mean, if you don't want to address it, because I did say, hey, I'm moving the goalpost. I know the topic is, does modern feminism really mean equal rights? And I can say that, my mind has been opened and changed from this conversation. I never really just took time out to think about the whole, sexual assault between the men rates and women rates. And then, just the importance of having a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout. I'll kind of take a swing I'll take a swing and see if I can hit the fences or go over for a home run. I think that men and women are equal. I think overall they're equal. They should have the same opportunity, the same pay. And I also believe that, if a woman calls law enforcement and says she's sexually assaulted, she should be given the same treatment and rights if a man were to do it. I think that men and women should both be equal. I don't think that there's a woman's role or a man's role in relationships. I don't think the man's job is to, go and bring home the bacon, and the woman stays at home with the kids and, cooking and cleaning. I do not believe in those roles anymore. I believe that men and women are equal, and that if a man wants to transition into being a woman, or if a woman wants to transition into a man, they are equal to what they are transitioning into. And I'll just go ahead and say, the whole 007 with the black woman wanting to play a role traditionally held by white men. I think that is a great thing. It's about, equality and breaking down those barriers, especially since there's different topics that a lot of people in the black community don't talk about, such as whenever you see a movie about slavery, we could say American slavery or even Canadian slavery, because a lot of people don't know this, but Canada has slaves or had slaves. And they also had American fugitive slaves. That's why a lot of people in Canada, are black and they are American descendants of slavery. And I think that they should get reparations. I digress. So I think that there definitely is equality between the two genders, and there also should be equality across the board. So we should see more slave movies where, instead of it being a white slave master and black slaves, where you have the black slave master and black slaves. It should be equal across the board. No more propaganda, no more dividing people amongst what we want to put them in as far as a box. That's the future. It's coming, whether we like it or not. I got it. We don't want to have it to where, don't push this or that on me. Well, it's there, and it may not affect you. It's going to affect your children, and someone's children. I know I have a son. I know you have a boy or girl, or maybe both. I'm not really sure.
I don't have children.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Mm-mm.
But if you do have children one day, or niece or nephew or a cousin, or some neighbor's kid walks into your yard, they may ask, how come a girl may ask, how come I cannot be in the Boy Scouts with my friends? Or a boy may ask, how come I cannot raise money selling Girl Scout cookies and make just as much money as the girls? Because selling Girl Scout cookies is actually a multi-million-dollar business. A lot of people don't know this, but it's actually a felony in the States to resell Girl Scout cookies if you're caught.
So, but see, now here's the thing though, because anyone can come up and ask me any one of those questions. I got answers for all of them, because this is what it comes down to. Again, for me right now, if the problem is that the things that the Boy Scouts do sell, because I know that I've seen them out there selling some stuff, chocolate bars and those poppies on Remembrance Day and stuff like that. If that isn't profitable enough, then they need to revamp that. So that way they are in a more profitable position when they're trying to raise money for a variety of activities or trips or whatever it is they're trying to raise money for. That should definitely be a thing. But again, and I'll say this all the time. I don't care. I'll say it now. I'll tell any child who wants to ask me. We are equal, meaning as far as our worth and value. We are equal, but we are not the same. And there is a difference. There's a difference. There are a lot of fundamental differences between men and women, not just as far as psyche, but as far as physically. Now, and for you to argue against that would be obviously to argue against transitioning, because in and of itself, if you believe that someone could be born in the wrong body, therefore want to be in a different body, then we have to understand that there is a different female and male psyche. So your psyche is not matching the body that you have, and there's a dissonance there. If you believe that people should be able to transition and then be equal in and of itself, you should also therefore believe that the psyche and the body are two different components of who you are. Now, with my physical body, And I live trapped in a completely different reality than a lot of people because I have a lot of physical limitations as far as my health. Now, here's the thing. So now if physically, in my head, trust me, I do a lot of things in my head. I really do. Now being able to actually get out there and do them, oftentimes a completely different story, but I do them in my head. I believe I can do them in my head until, my body reminds me that, no, that's not going to be a thing I can do today. I should not be able to get a job that involves a lot of physical labor if I can't do the physical job. And in fact, I wouldn't go out for a job that involves a lot of physical labor because I can't do it. It doesn't logically make sense.
But what if you could do it?
But see, that's what I'm saying though. At the end of the day, if I can do everything that I need to do, not with some help, not with some provisions, but literally I can actually do it, then yes, I should be able to get the job. And see, that's the state that things are currently in.
And get the same opportunity and equal pay?
But again, that's the state that things are currently in. So if you don't like the job, and this is what it comes down to, right? Again, I think teachers are grossly underpaid. It's a really underpaid profession. And you have a lot, the majority of teachers are women. So then that means the majority of women are underpaid. Okay, well, from that perspective then, and you're looking at that, well, that is unfair. That is incredibly unfair. I think there's lots of high paid jobs that are far less worthwhile than teachers. That isn't due to a gender thing. That's due to a job title thing. Teachers are underpaid. This is what it comes down to. Lawyers are not. Okay. So now is the bar rejecting women? Is the bar not letting through women? Are people rejecting women at law firms based on the fact that they're women? I mean, what are we really looking at here? Now, could we have said that, yeah, this is absolutely the case 20, 30 years ago? Yes. But is that what we're looking at in society now? No, it's not. And see, that's where I have a problem. Is what we're doing is we're taking old issues and then pretending they still exist, which is problem number one. And problem number two, what we're doing is we're not going for equality. We're not going for fairness, which is to say this job exists. This job requires XYZ things. So if you can meet that job, regardless of gender, you should be able to get it. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, well, you know what, we don't have enough women in that job because women can't meet XYZ requirements. So let's drop Y requirement and let's make X requirement a little bit easier. That way it's going to let in more women. No, there's a problem with that. Because in and of this itself, if that job has those requirements, then those requirements are still important today, just like they were important 20 years ago. That is a different situation. And we need to start recognizing that, hey, there's going to be the odd woman who might have a lot of upper body strength, and so therefore can do a job that requires a lot of upper body strength. But many women will not. We should not change the requirements and say, yeah, well, she doesn't have the upper body strength, but yeah, we need a quota of 30% women in this job. So we'll just let a bunch of women in who can't really do the job or can only do the job if there's 2 or 3 of them. So we have to hire 30% more staff just to compensate for the women. That's not logical, right? And that's not fair. And to me, that isn't fairness. When we're talking about jobs, that's not fairness in the hiring selection, because the best applicant should get the job regardless of gender, even if the best applicant is yet another man. That's what egalitarian and egalitarian and Jesus, what is egalitarianism and a meritocracy is about? The best person for the job, regardless of other factors.
Yeah, I see feminism almost got you tongue-tied there.
Well, no, because I believe in a meritocracy and egalitarianism, but in and of itself, it is going, those two factors are going against third and fourth wave feminism, because that's not what third and fourth wave feminism are looking to do anymore. They're not looking for equality. What they're looking to do is to put women in a status that is above men. Not equal with men, but above men. It's almost like they want to turn the tables. Like, well, in society for so long, men had the upper hand. So now women should have the upper hand. They're not fighting for equality. They're fighting for the upper hand. I staunchly am against that. I don't think men should have had the upper hand in society for blah, blah, blah. Because again, I believe in a meritocracy. But with that being said, two wrongs don't make a right. Well, they were wrong for a while. Let us be wrong for a while. I don't think that that's the way to go about things.
Yes, because different feminist movements allow, women to vote in the states, and also women who want to be married and have a family, but don't necessarily want to do gender traditional roles, has helped a lot of families prosper. Now, moving away from gender specific roles, moving away from gender stereotypes has, in some individuals' opinions, has hurt family dynamics. So what are your thoughts on women working and men being house husbands?
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. It just happened by accident.
Oh, wow.
No. Okay. Here's my real thought for real, without mocking for a second. It's not for me. It never, even without all of my health, it would not have been for me. I have a little bit more of a traditionalist mindset, but with that being said, here's my thing. If you have a man and a woman, they want to have a family, they're happily married otherwise, and the woman's career brings in significantly more. She's career driven and focused. And whereas he was just working a job, so he didn't really care. And they make the decision where he's going to stay at home with the children and she's going to continue on in her career. I think that that is a totally respectable decision to make, and an admirable thing to do on his side. Because sitting there and being stubborn and being like, no, you stay home with the children, or insisting on working so no one stays home with the children when the wife is pulling in way more than enough with her career. I think that's just being stubborn. However, money to me has nothing to do with the balance of, I guess we'll say, leadership within the household, and the balance of what I will also say is respect as far as who is the head of your household. She can make as much money as she wants. If she now was wearing the pants in her relationship, that's where I start batting my eyes.
Okay. And by wearing the pants, you mean if she's head of household?
Right.
So if a woman is working and a man is not, like he's laid off from his job, he's fired, or he becomes disabled, does that make him less of a man?
Not to me. And that's where I think people are getting things twisted, is they're equating money or, pardon?
You just said that she should wear the pants in the family.
No, I said that she should not.
Okay, so she should not wear the pants in the family, but if she's the only working, isn't she wearing the pants? Isn't she making?
No, and that's what I said, because to me, money has nothing to do with the internal dynamics of your home. That to me really doesn't mean anything in the grand scale of the balance of power and respect inside the household. That's what I said.
Okay. So no black girl magic for you.
No.
I got it. Basically, the man should be head of the household because he's a man, and the woman should, know her place because she's a woman. I got that. And,
no, see, that's not what I said. See, this is where people start getting things twisted, and that's the problem, right? Is to go to some extreme of what I said and then say that that's what I said. That's not, necessarily functional either. Here's what it comes down to, and you can go back to biblical times. Whether you believe these are the words of God or not, it comes down to, it does make some pretty deep statements that have always been true. One of the things it says, husbands, love your wives, and wives, respect your husbands, right? Men need respect. It's something that, is an internal thing that drives men, and, women need love. It's something that is an internal thing that drives women. Now, with that being said, does that mean that men don't need love? No, of course they need love. Does it mean women don't need respect? Of course they need respect. But what we're looking at is, again, the makeup, the psyche of the man and the psyche of the woman. And what it comes down to is, remember, I talked about this before, the strengths that men have and the strengths that women have. Women are amazing problem solvers. Women are really good at figuring out little details. Women are really good at micromanaging. They're really good at a lot of things. Our brains are programmed in certain ways, right? And men are very good at protecting. Men are very, very good at that. Men are very good at leadership, especially when it comes to their wives and their children. It's an ingrained thing that's built in, just like nurturing is an ingrained thing that's built into women. It's why women start nesting, right? And men start protecting and providing. It's a thing that's built in. Now, with that being said, if a man is going to make this sacrifice and allow himself to say, okay, you know what? I see the common sense in this. So I'm going to protect and provide. I'm going to just provide in a different way. So instead of me providing as the breadwinner, because I see the logic in this, I'm going to provide as a stay-at-home father. I'm going to provide for my children and my wife in different ways. You know, that, what does that have to do with him becoming less of a man, or now he's basically the woman in the relationship? That's not the truth at all. She just makes more money. Great. So, or if they both have to work, you know, what does that have to do with that the internal psychological needs of men and women, and where they best shine in a relationship?
I'm glad you said that about the Bible, because the Bible is very oppressive of women. So I can get out my own. I can get out an actual Bible and read directly from the Word, or you know, we could trust the church.org as far as, you know, women should learn in quietness and full submission. Do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent. That's First Timothy, second chapter, verses 11 through 15. There's other verses, you know, I'm not going to them about, you know, women being oppressed. But so to further oppress or talk about oppressing women, there's been issues of reproductive rights. Now, a man and a woman lay down, they have sex. A woman.
Can we address this first, though? I don't want to move past the Bible verses. I want to address them.
Okay, yeah. I don't see how to. Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Okay, so let's look at, because again, if you take any Bible verse out of context, you can use that to support just about anything. People do it all the damn time. It's one of my issues with religion. But you look at this, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent, etc. Now, they've used this Bible verse to support all kinds of things, from marriage to actually being leaders in the church, you know, to being teachers in schools at one point. So they've used that Bible verse to support all kinds of things. But first of all, that's not taking into account something that people really need to learn how to do, is you need to take into account what was happening in the world at that time, right? This is why humanities courses would be very helpful for some people, because then they might actually be able to learn context to the Bible.
Well, I got to cut you off. So are you saying that women back then should have been submissive, but now they should not be? They should be men.
I haven't even addressed the verse yet. I just said that so far that people need to learn context. But what people also need to learn is the context of what words actually mean inside of the Bible. So, for example, silent, right? The quietness, stillness. We hear those words actually repeated a lot in the Bible, and not just in relation to women, right? So now, what is a position of quietness and learning and stillness? What does that mean to you? Because it means something different to me and to you. Just like submission probably means something different to me and to you. So I want to know what it means to you.
So silent and being quiet, you do that when you're learning and you're attentive to something or someone else.
And so now, see, quiet and quietness, right? See, now there's this action that's tacked on to quiet. So quietness, right? It's akin to the word stillness. What does that mean, right? You can't learn anything about anyone or anything in general if all you're doing, you're agitated inside of your soul, and you're just waiting for your chance to speak. You're waiting for your chance to fight back. You're waiting for your chance to defend. You're waiting for your chance to answer, to ask a question, to do anything. You can't learn when you aren't still, when you don't have a quietness inside of yourself and a peace within yourself. Okay? So Now you think about that and you add in the word submission. What does submission mean? Because people think that it's this crazy thing where you have to be some quiet, submissive person walking around. It's not a personality trait. It's a state of being where you are submitting, as in you are giving in fully and you are allowing something in fully. And then in a state of readiness, in a state of quietness, you are ready to learn. You are ready to take something in fully and completely. Now, any woman who is in a happy marriage knows that this is exactly what you must do, because you need to know your husband. You need to know him completely and fully. And you need to know times where it's time for you to pick up your battle axe and go to war. And it's time, the times where it's time for you to just, you know what? Just let it go, because you know what, this is important, or this is when he's really upset. This isn't the time to address him. Right? So now this is not about you sitting there walking around being a wallflower and whatever. These are actually really important relationship skills that God, if some people had, they would be in a much better, happier place. This is not a personality thing. These are states of being within yourself internally. And to be in a state of submission to a man who's in a state of leadership, because these are all states. These are all internal states. These are not, one is about power, one is about, weakness. No, these are internal states, because leadership comes with protection and provision and security. When a man falls under leadership to a woman, it's like there's this drive. He will do anything to protect her. He will do anything to provide for her. He will do anything for her to feel secure. And then that gets passed down to her children. That is a lot of sacrifice, and it will be a loss of life, even if necessary, to provide that. And all that she is doing, she's opening herself up and she is submitting to his leadership. So he has a direction. He's got a 5-year plan. He's got everything mapped out, because men are actually really good at that. The bigger, larger plan, the bigger, larger scale. And she says, yeah, you know what? I'm down with that plan. I could be about that plan. And I could even add and support that plan. And so she submits to his leadership. And now everything he's going to do is going to be to provide, protect, secure, and get her to that place. And everything she's going to be doing is going to be for her to support, nurture, care, and help them get to that place, because that's the place that they've chosen to go together. Now, tell me how that is oppressive.
Well, it's oppressive due to the fact that it's based off these verses. Only men should lead and men should be governing women and their lives, and kind of segueing into, I know you want to, kind of continue to discuss the Bible, which we can, but I think you made some great points, and we should segue into reproductive rights. So the same way you said how women should remain silent in the churches.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how people have tried to use that, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Women, wives, should submit to their husbands, letting men be the leaders. And, nothing wrong with that. I believe that women can also be leaders as well. I've served with women in the military, and they make great officers, even sergeants. I also, have heard women preaching in the church. I know the Bible, there's verses about women shouldn't preach in church. I can go grab my Bible and quote those if you want me to. But these verses, basically taken into context, in my opinion, they also mean that a man should have jurisdiction over a woman's body, over a woman's reproductive rights. If he's the leader and he's the head, then he should have the final say-so in all things if he's leading, including reproductive rights. A man and a woman lay down, she gets pregnant. Based off these verses and what I'm thinking that you're saying, that a man should have the final say-so in a woman's body. What are your thoughts on reproductive rights in women and overall the government, which majority of the government is ran by men, so it's basically men saying what women should do with their bodies?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you ask me, our society is entirely too hypersexualized, and way too many people are having way too much sex with way too many people without concern for what the consequences might be. that's a problem. Maybe people should stop doing that, and then we would have less of these concerns. Because when we're going to talk about in the context of a relationship, again, when we're talking about leadership, there's a plan. This is not about micromanaging her every movement on a day-to-day basis. And people who think that that's what it is have never really truly experienced the beauty of this leadership submission cycle, but also have probably never really experienced the beauty of a functional relationship. Because what it comes down to is now he has a plan, right? And again, you've jumped on that train. So you've decided I'm down for that plan too. That plan also is going to include in that 5 or 10 years y'all are together, when are you going to have children? How many of those children are you going to have, for example? And now, so let's say you guys have decided, no, we're not going to have children right away and whatever. So what do? You get on the pill, right? Because you guys have decided collectively you're not going to have children right away. Or you're on the pill and he's using condoms. And in a case, I had a friend, and that's exactly what he did. Until he was ready to have children, he kept using condoms with his wife because he was not ready. That was not part of his plan currently. And so that's what needs to be happening right now is you guys have to make a collective decision about how you want to govern your relationship. Now, a bunch of children are running around, grown-ass children are running around thinking they understand any damn thing. And again, doing things without thinking about the consequences of their actions. So saying, I don't want children right now, and then barebacking some chick you met at the club last night when you guys both have had too much to drink is probably not the way to go for you to not have children, right? This is just from that concept of him having leadership over your body. No, this is about him having leadership, about dictating a plan, a life plan, life goals that you guys are going to set out and then work on together. So that means you guys should be in one accord about that. That means if you've agreed to not have children for the next 5 to 10 years, no poking holes in condoms or not taking your pills or whatever, because you decide you want kids at year 3. That's not the way things are supposed to go. If you guys are a team and you're part of this team, then you know what? You shouldn't be working against the end goal. Now, when it comes to women's reproductive rights, and this is something I say to men all the time, I really do. At the end of the day, it was entirely wrong that men could sleep with women bareback, impregnate them, and then it wasn't their problem one way or the other. And she had to go try to figure out what the hell she's going to do with this kid. Is she's going to keep it? If she's going to go to some back alleyway and have someone stick a coat hanger in her or whatever the case is. No, those are some messed up times. We should definitely not go back to those messed up times.
But decided if a man walks away or says he doesn't want the child, he pretty much voted with his feet. And now the woman has to deal with abortion or birth. So,
well, no, but see, now there's a third option, and this is the option that no one likes, but this is why people need to be more responsible with their sexual choices, because the third option is you can vote with your feet all you want, but I'm going to vote with the courts. Right? No one likes this option, not because of the people who are impregnating people by choice and then walking away when things don't work out or whatever, but because of women who do scandalous things, or because of women who are using the courts as a way to penalize people when it's not fair or necessary or just, and because of the way that the courts have, in a way, I guess, escalated penalties and so on and so forth to try to punish ain't shit people. And really the only people that ends up hurting are actually good guys who are trying to do the right thing with an otherwise vindictive woman. So we've got some issues with the court system and the way that women are now, giving the anti-vote. But at the same time, and this is an important thing, I say this to men all the time, if you want to be able to all willy-nilly go out there, sleep with whatever chick you want, every single night it's a new chick, use condoms or you don't, and you don't care about if you're going to get some STD or AIDS or whatever, because apparently you think you're immortal, and so on and so forth, then if you happen to accidentally impregnate some random chick you met at the bar, and you go, but she said she was on birth control. You met her an hour ago. Who cares what she said? And now she wants to hold you accountable. You can't be mad. You can't be mad.
Basically, men and women aren't the same when it comes to reproductive rights then. Because if they were equal, women are more equal than men, and it should be where both of them have a say so.
Right, and this is the problem. Remember what I said? There's lots of places in society where, in order to, treat women as humans, literally as actual humans, there's going to be an unfair advantage against men, and that's what it comes down to. In order to treat women as actual humans, there's an unfair advantage against men, and it's going to exist as long as women have a right to choose, which they should.
So if men and women are equal and women get the final say, which of course is their body, why are men being punished by a decision that they don't really have a say so in ultimately?
See, this is the problem. Again, every time you pick up some random chick at a bar, you choose to take her home, and you choose to sleep with her,
random shit.
You're taking a risk.
It could be someone that you've known for a while. It's just that, whether they bareback, condom breaks, or someone's using some type of contraceptive, or even the Plan B pill. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the Plan B pill, and everything goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She gets pregnant. It's her body. If she chooses to have the baby, but the man does not, why is he punished for something that he doesn't really have a say so?
But again, see, this is the problem, right? And this is where it's an unfair advantage, but it comes down to is men don't have to be invested in that decision one way or the other. And I mean physically, the physical impact of abortion on women, it's very well detailed. Now, with that being said, and people go, oh, well, you believe in, sex before marriage, but not abortion. Well, here's the problem with that, right? Is that if women were really to hold true to that, guys would be in a dry spell real quick. And no one really wants that either. So what we need to recognize is this. You need to be asking questions and getting to know the person that you're going to sleep with and knowing some of their viewpoints on some of these things. For example, do you believe in abortion? Do you want children right now? These are important questions you could ask somebody, because most of these women will tell you they would never have an abortion. It's not like they lied about the fact that they'd have an abortion or not. So then when everything went wrong and oops, well, we're stuck with it anyway, at this point, before you slipped it inside of her, you knew that if everything goes wrong, you're going to have a kid with this woman. Do you really want that?
And I agree. I agree that even though I mentioned the whole child support thing, I believe that both men and women are equal in the decision, and that even though one person is carrying the baby, both people ultimately vote to have the child because they both laid down and had sex. And the consequence is she has the baby, he gets put on child support. So I agree. And that, men and women should be made equal in all decision making as much as possible. Now, I got it. A woman's body is going to have more of an effect when it comes to birth or an abortion, which is why it's justified for a woman to have maternity leave for a job, and maternity leave should not be included when it comes to occupation. That should be something that's just like a separate little asterisk, because physically men and women are different when it comes to childbirth. But I believe that in every other aspect, as much as possible, men and women should be given equal opportunity, equal pay, and equal consequences for their actions. And it shouldn't be one person's given a punishment and another person's not, because everyone should be equal.
No, and see, with that being said, because I have an issue whereby, and I mean, it's mostly men who end up being single fathers do not go after the women most of the time in court for child support. They don't. But again, I think it should be either it's mandatory or it's not. Either it happens or it doesn't. And I think that women should also be penalized for being, ancient mothers who want to walk away from their kids. I think also, and actually I've suggested this before, I think there should be like an app or something for this. And so what ends up happening is, right, okay, I'm down for having casual sex, let's say. So I go into this app and I check a bunch of boxes, right? So, down to bareback or not, down to take a Plan B or not, will have an abortion or not. All of these things, I'm going to click them all in advance.
Right?
Including no, I don't mean that night. Like, I'm going to go sign up for this service, right? And so I click all of these things, what I'm down for, what I'm not. Now, what happens is a guy or a girl, now you go into the search parameters, right? And you click what you want to see from someone. So someone who absolutely will wear a condom, okay with having the baby if everything goes wrong, da 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 da. You click on all of these boxes and it matches you up with other singles in your area who are down for the same thing you are. So that way now, and then what ends up happening is, so now you're like, okay, yeah, so now we're ready to go. I'm going to meet up with you tonight at the bar. We print out, I'm going to print out my contract, your contract. It's going to be a connected, like say 5-piece document. We know what each person had agreed to. We read it well in advance. You sign it. There you go. Now, are people going to be too lazy to do this? Sure. But smart people will sign up for this application and they will only hook up with people through it, because then it gives you a guarantee. So if you want a chick who, no matter what, she wants no strings attached. If she gets pregnant, she ain't looking for no baby. She's for sure having an abortion. Da 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 da. If for some reason she chooses not to go through with the abortion, she's agreeing right now. She's not going to ask you for nothing. No child support, no nothing. You get her to, you find that woman, that's the one that you're sleeping with. You know what I mean? Because that way, then it's protecting. Men should sign up for that and only sleep with women who have also signed up for this application. Because right now, again, short of treating women like they're not humans, or ignoring children like, they're just like a cold or like the herpes virus or something, like, yeah, it's something I caught from that sex that one time, but it's not, no, that's a human. It needs parents. It needs support. It needs whatever. The child didn't choose to be conceived in the way that it was. So short of, dismissing those two factors, we're going to have some disparities unless people start making better choices for themselves, and not just saying, well, it's not fair. I should be able to do whatever I want with no consequences. Like, that's not necessarily a good argument either. So, because if we could do this and people were making smarter choices, then what happens is we could then start pinpointing in the court system women who are using the court system and their children as weapons, and we could go after those women in the same way that they've gone after these guys who are good guys, who are just, they literally are doing the right thing and they're doing their best, but these women want to penalize them because the relationship fell apart, because he got with a new girl, because of whatever, and are using child support system and the child to penalize the man. I have an issue with that, right? We have some issues on both sides of this equation where we've got to fix those things, because it's not cool. It's not fair. You know what I mean? And what it's doing is it's basically invalidating women who need the court system, and they're not trying to abuse it. They're not trying to, hey, I was with the man for however many years. We had our 2-3 kids together. We chose, to be together for 15 years. And then he left me because he found a younger model of me. Now he wants nothing to do with his kids. Is that a fair choice that he can make? No, of course not. You chose to have these kids in this whole family. Now you're choosing to walk away. That's cool, but you don't get to walk away at that point and say, I don't care about the 3 kids in the household I left behind. That's not fair either. So we've got to find a way of making the court systems target who they're supposed to be targeting, and not target, good guys who are just kind of being abused by the system.
I agree with the points you made. And those are probably pretty much going to be the takeaway of the live stream, that, getting to know someone, discussing like, how do you feel about abortion? What is it that we have? Are we going to get married? Are we really, is this relationship really going to lead somewhere? The app idea you presented, it sounds interesting. Maybe that app will be created in the future. Maybe it's floating around right now. We don't know. But I do agree with getting to know someone and talking about all the discussion points, including reproductive rights. How do you feel about if I'm unemployed and you're working? Will you look down on me? I think just having that discussion will kind of prevent a lot of issues and a lot of strife. So I can say my mind was changed on a lot of things. I think, those are some good takeaways. Did I miss anything? As far as like takeaways, besides, sitting down, having a deep discussion on everything and kind of agreeing on what the interaction and relationship will be, and just kind of like holding each other accountable for that.
No, I think, that I think is obviously a really important factor. Shoot, there was something I wanted to address, and it came up sometime in that we were talking within this topic, I think, and I'm like, I wanted to address it, but I'm like, let's focus here first. And
what was it? The Bible?
Oh, I know what it was. Nope. I know what it was. I remembered now. Um, and it's all going to start really, I mean, it didn't start exactly here, but it all starts with the Amber Rose slut walk. So this idea that women, so again, it's all about equality here, for example, that women should be allowed to be as naked and promiscuous and acting as whorish as they want in public, and yet men should not comment on this, notice them, see them, or touch them, unless the woman wants them to, which in case all men who they want to address them should be addressing them, looking at them, talking about how sexy they are. Otherwise, it's discrimination.
It's a two-way street. It's sexual harassment, sexual assault both ways. It depends on who complains, if they complain, who goes and complains first, and what the facts are. It's a two-way street.
You're kidding. See, this is another thing, CK, and the problem is you keep saying it's a two-way street, like somehow if men complain, they'd be taken seriously, ever.
Well, it is like, if a man goes out in public and he's groped by a woman, if he wants to press charges, he can. No one's going to stop him from doing that.
Be serious.
It may seem like every man wants to be touched by every type of woman, or if a man complains, no one does anything. You'd be surprised.
Exactly. People would be surprised, but here's the problem, is you say they can go and complain like someone would take it seriously. And you say that they can go and complain like somehow that woman, listen, that woman, oh man, I can't remember what her name is. I think she was like Australian or something. Anyway, she ruined like 7 different guys' lives with literally lying about being raped by them. She literally lied. It's not like it was a gray area. She just lied her ass off and everyone believed her. And a couple guys lost their scholarships and all kinds of stuff. And then when she was finally found out, did she go to jail?
How do you prevent that from, there's no way you can prevent, onesies and twosies situations of unfortunate circumstances from happening. The only way you can prevent that is by decreasing the bite that goes into complaining about being sexually assaulted by women. There are women who are going to make false reports, and that stuff kind of does happen. But you don't want to, there's no way you can rectify that truly without decreasing the authority that's given in a situation when women complain about being sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. There's no way you can prevent that. And now one thing you can do, like you were saying earlier in the stream, is, get to know who you're involved with, have the conversation, get to know them. Don't just immediately jump into bed with them or try to, like Albert Wilson.
No, the question wasn't any of this though. The question was simply, did she go to jail for what she did to several men? Because here's the problem. You're right. This is why young, promising men who one of them didn't even sleep with her, if I remember correctly. At least one of them didn't sleep with her even. Went to jail, lost scholarships, lost their lives, lost years to prison. And then when she was finally found out, and now it's a matter of her getting in trouble for what she's done to all of these men. And they proposed, I think it was 18 months in prison. Feminists rallied. It was unfair. See what I'm saying? There's no punishment. See, you want to know how you decrease false reports? Is you make sure that the crime, it's a crime, and that there is a hefty penalty for you actually doing this, for you actually going out of your way. I mean, this is a serial repeat offender. This is not someone where, it's a gray area, no one's really sure. Nah, they knew. They knew 100%, and they still didn't want to give her jail time. And so she took decades off of these men's lives in total, ruined the rest of their lives, bright, promising futures, because she was mad because they didn't want to date her, because of whatever. No one did anything to her. And nothing happened to her. There's no consequence. That's the problem. Is there's no consequence for lying, because we're in the believe you era. So because we're supposed to believe you, everyone believes you immediately, don't need any evidence at all, so on and so forth, because we know evidence is hard to get in rape cases and whatever. And then boom, now you're proven that you've been lying about all these people, and there's no consequence for your actions.
My heart goes out to them, because nobody wants to be falsely convicted of rape, because even if you're let off or you're vindicated, the public opinion is not going to change of you. So yeah, my heart goes out to them. You know, I hate that people go through that. I don't see any way to really prevent that without
Again,
ultimately.
I just told you the way, and you're not seeing it. There
I
is no
hear
punishment.
I hear what you're saying as far as they should be punished for a false report. Uh, People should protest that you know that she, the Australian woman, wasn't held liable for what she did with the false report. People should be protesting. They should be contacting their congressperson. People should be doing more. You're right. And the fact that no one's done anything is a part of the problem, that a lot of people are just getting, you know, by skate free. And so I agree with that. You know, people who file false reports should be held accountable. Why no one's protested, why no politician has gotten involved, why no one's tried to, you know, present charges to her, I don't know. I
But
don't
you're
have
saying that like that's actually a valid option, because these days it is literally not a valid option for you to protest or fight for anything except for feminism. It is not a valid option for you. I mean, it's not even a valid option for people these days to just not support feminism. I dare you to show up at the next award show not wearing whatever the hell feminism says you're supposed to wear to support it. Look what happens to people when they just don't wear the right colors. It's not a feasible option, and that is the problem. Nobody cares what's happening to men. No one cares about the fallout to men. Nobody cares about that. And you know what? And the worst of them will sit there and say, "Well, they did it to us for so many years, so I'm glad." So you know what? That is the issue. That's where I said again, third and fourth wave feminism is not about equality. It's about women being on top of men. It's not about being equal. It's not about fairness. It's not about justice. It's about women being believed over men the way men were believed over women for countless decades. That's what it's about. And that is not justice, and that's not equality either.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. No more goal post moving for me. I think a lot of points were presented. I think this was, you know, a very productive live stream. You know, nobody cursed anyone out. I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed this, and you know, I hope that we can do some more in the future. I know I sent some emails to you for some other subjects, and hopefully, you know, people in the chat or on the replay can, you know, get some stuff out of this. And I do think the takeaways are, you know, getting to know someone, seeing all the different things that is happening in the news, and you know, just being careful with who you're intimate with or who you're alone with, because a stranger can end up being your danger. A stranger danger. So yeah, and then you have the last thoughts if you want to, you know, present anything else or anything that you were unclear about, or anything that you I'm not gonna say that you were unclear about, but any other points that you want to drive home, or anything else you'd like to bring up.
Yeah, sure. I can also bring up just the fact that as a Black woman, um, white feminism is not for you, Black women. It claims it is, just like it claims it's about equality. It claims like it's about equality for all things, intersectional, discrimination, and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, there are more and more groups, and they're willing to now speak more and more openly about it, where they don't want to include Black people in feminism. They don't want to fight for Black women's issues, and they don't. And as long as the disparity doesn't exist for white women, they don't care how it's affecting Black women at all, or any other minority group for that matter. They'll latch on to whatever movement that will help them soar a little bit, or give them a little bit of, public prestige, but they don't care. They care about themselves. And so, my issue with feminism above all else is that there is nothing about feminism that is doing anything to our community except hurting and destroying it. Even back when feminism, I felt that it was actually a necessary movement. Even back then, you had women like Alice Walker saying, hey, listen, white feminism isn't really for us because it doesn't address the specific position of Black women in society, where Black women in society cannot fight against Black men. We can't do that because they aren't really above us. in that way, and they aren't our oppressor. The white man is. So white women can fight against the white man, and make that her enemy and make that her target, but we can't do that to our men, because we need to be fighting alongside them just as much as we need to be fighting our own separate battles, which is still not against them. And that's actually why and how womanism was born. Now, the womanist of today's womanist tends to be someone who's been in white feminism, and then, just likes the title womanism better because it's Black feminism, and they still don't really understand what it means. But what it comes down to is, and what we need to start doing, is really critically examining what feminism is really trying to do, what its real true goals and intentions are, and how that may or may not hurt us, and whether or not it's even really a worthy goal at this moment, or whether it's something we already achieved and is just being used as a smokescreen for some other type of political avenue. And those are my last thoughts on it.
I like how you were saying Black men and Black women should equally face issues, and not one being more important or greater than the other. Not throwing any last shots or anything in. It's just that I think that it's just one of those things where working together, respecting each other, and not being like a certain section of YouTube that says otherwise is just kind of like the best way to go. And so, Alexa, who was right?
The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur.
Alexa, stop.
I know you tried to train her to say you were right, but it didn't work because she couldn't even lie. Nice try though.
She failed. But yeah,
code.
Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate the live stream. Appreciate you sharing your points. I think it was a great discussion, and yeah, I look forward to kind of like talking with you in the future and doing more videos. And this should be ready in maybe like 30 minutes to an hour. I don't know how long we've actually been on here. I think we've been on here about
wow, like an hour and a half maybe.
Yeah. My YouTube is saying 1 minute. So yeah, YouTube is full of crap. Yeah, it's been a minute. But yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna go ahead and end the.
Thank you for having me. It was a great discussion. I know we will be having lots more because, as I said before the stream went live, it's almost like God created two human beings who were going to have opinions, and those opinions were always going to be in stark contrast to the other person. So we've got lots to talk about. Looking forward to the next one.
We do, because just to kind of give a preview of the ones that I sent you, I don't know if you've decided on another one or if you want me to decide. But
I think I picked the second one, but it was just like a not today. But that one sounds cool. One of those things.
You mean, should reparations go to descendants of American fugitive slaves outside the U.S.?
Yes, that was the second one. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have had things to say about people who are not American, who are descendants of American slaves, and that's gonna be a great topic, because I've heard a lot of people say a lot of crappy things, and it's just time to clear all that up. Even if it is an echo chamber, I'm okay with it. It's stuff that should be said. And also I'm gonna post this on my Facebook page. So and if I know you're in the drawing with because your blog and your IG. In the description, there's a link to a Facebook page that I started. There's like maybe like 60 plus people in there. If you ever want to sell your items, that's a place you can advertise at.
I don't really draw. No. Mm-mm.
You draw.
I don't know how to draw. No. I don't. I like taking pictures that actually exist and messing with them in Photoshop. That I can do. I can't draw.
That's pretty much the same thing. These days, people are doing that. They're actually selling that kind of stuff. Well, if you change your mind and you want to sell whatever you call that, or anything else, the links in the description for the Facebook page group. It's called social media marketing. You know, you're more than welcome to post it in there and, you know, kind of do your thing there. And yeah. So do you want to plug your IG, your Facebook information? Like, you wanted to say where you are for any followers? If not, you know, no pressure.
Well, you could go to YouTube on youtube.com/Classic Ruby. And of course, my website, classicruby.com. I mean, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Classic Ruby, at Classic Ruby. But I'm like a struggle poster. So like, you know, don't expect a whole lot. Oh, Twitter too. I'm on Twitter too. Still struggle. But I'm less struggle on Twitter than on the other ones, but that's not saying a whole lot. So yeah, I'd probably stick with YouTube in my blog, classicruby.com and youtube.com/Classic Ruby.
All right, outstanding. Well, yeah, thanks again for coming on, and I guess I'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
All right.
All
See
right.
you later.
Cheers.
Bye.